Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of Bushcraft Plants. Today we're going to be looking at Fatwood, which is the resinous fire starter and tool that many bushcrafters use that you can find in coniferous environments everywhere in the world. There are over 100 species of pine tree on the world, all the way ranging from Eurasia to North America. So this is a pretty worldwide resource. Anyway, today I'm going to show you how to use it as a fire starter and as a tool, so stick around. So what tools will you need to be able to harvest fatwood? Well, today we've got an axe with us, a folding saw, and most bushcrafters will have this anyway, but a sheath knife. Today I'm using my Elkridge Classic Hunter, which I have a review on here. Decent sheath knife, gets the job done, nothing very well refined though. In some cases, like pine shoulders, you won't need an axe, you just need a folding saw. So the first thing we need to look at is where to find it. Well, at the moment we're actually sitting on a downed pine, which is a kind of sad but useful trait of pine, is that they tend to fall down a lot of the time. They come down in storms quite often. So this one is downed recently, but not too long ago that we can't get anything from it. Another way you can find this is in the stumps of pine trees. And basically what happens there is if the tree has been taken down, the resin will go inside of the core of the wood and you'll be able to find it there. But in this case we're going to be looking at a solid downed pine. So we're here at a pine tree that's fallen down, as I said earlier, and what we'll do is we're going to take our axe and we're going to cut a notch into one of the shoulders on the tree. Like that. Wow, look at that actually, it's pretty good. Right, and what we're looking for... Sorry, I'm getting dust all over my cameraman, sorry about that. So we've cut our notch and we know that this particular branch here has our resin infused in it, and that is a fatwood shoulder. What's the next part? Well, the easiest way to identify it after that is to smell it. Yeah, that's definitely fatwood. Basically, not only do we know there are red rings in it, but we can smell a strong smell of what most people would recognise as turpentine. That's because the resin in the tree is infused with something called tarpine, even, which is full of flammable hydrocarbons, which is what makes it such a great fire starter. So what's the next part? Right. Well, you could do this with an axe, but I prefer a more precise cut, which is why I'm actually going to go with a folding saw today. So, take the thing and take it right to as close to the base as we can, so we get the maximum amount. Next thing you want to do is look in the rings. This is a brilliant piece actually, because we want to look at the places where there's red in the rings, like this. Like it's the red from the grain there just coming through in circular form. So we know we've got a really good piece here because there's a lot of red, especially just here. So next thing we're going to do is cut this a little bit shorter, maybe about a foot and a half, and then we'll have a really nice piece of fatwood to work with. Okay, so here we are now, and we've cut out our large chunk of fatwood. And you can see there's all the colours that we were looking at a minute ago. But we can't just straight up light this, it won't work. It's covered in bark, it's a big chunk, it won't light. So what do we do next? Well, batoning is the next step. It's the easiest way of doing it. Can do it with an axe, but it's too imprecise for my liking. So we're going to take off the edges of this and get to the real fatwood in the core. Look at that. That is beautiful. Look at all the resin in that. That's very red, and the redder it is, the more resin you've got your hands on. Whenever you're working with wood, it's best to work on a surface of wood, because then if you miss, you're going straight into the wood and you won't blunt up your knife like you might do on soil or stone. So just keep slowly going around this, and as I'm going off, I'm conscious to know where the bits are going, because the bits that I'm cutting off to get to the cord are still pretty seriously decent firewood, and I don't want to lose those pieces simply out of pickiness. Like the piece I've taken off here, I think we're actually going to roll with today, because it's very red, and that's exactly what we're looking for. This red right there, so fantastic. Now, the piece we've got here is a pretty good size, but I think I'm going to halve this piece again, so we've got about a thumb size piece. A bit thicker than that is probably the optimal thing that you're going to take in your pack. So in what ways can we use these sticks to actually start a fire? Well, these sticks about this big, I've cut one out here from that larger log, which I still have most of, so this I can cut this up, process this and make it into a very valuable fire starter later on. But the best way to do it, I think, is shavings. That conserves the most of your fatwood and gives the biggest results. Essentially, you use the 90 edge on the spine of your knife to get small bits of shavings off, and then those will actually take a light with a flint and steel, as you can see in this short video here. Another way that you can do it, which is most people like, is feathering it. Most of you will be familiar with feathering sticks, but I'm doing that here. They're a little bit thicker, so they won't take from flint and steel, unless you're really good at feather sticks. But you can use a lighter with that and it will do really well, and that's actually quite a good way of working it up to a larger tinder. Often I'll take shavings off these and then feather one and put the feather on top of the shavings, and that way I can light feathers with a flint and steel through the shavings. But essentially those are the two ways in which people use this to start a fire. Fatwood is a little bit sticky, so some people say it's a bit of a pain to work with, but honestly, wear gloves, solve that problem, or just don't get too bothered by the stickiness. So there we go, those are some of the uses for fatwood, but there is another use yet, and I'm going to show you that, and that use is a fatwood torch. And some people would probably argue that that sounds a bit mental, but it works surprisingly well. So what you want to do is, like you're building a gig, you split a piece of fatwood down and then down again in a cross formation like this, and then what you can do with it is put two bits of fatwood in it, light it up, and it will burn for a while because of the oils inside it. Okay, but how does this actually work? So the science behind this is relatively simple. Essentially, pine trees have these resin tubes that go from the core of the tree to the branches outwards. And when a tree dies, all of the resin goes back through these tubes and hardens in the middle, which is why you get dead trees having resinous wood inside of them. So it's relatively simple. This is the same pine resin that goes out and bleeds on the scabs of the trees to defend them from illness and attack from animals. So that's essentially what we're doing here. As the tree ages, it's defended more attacks of cutting in its life. So that means that why an older tree is going to have better fatwood than a younger tree that's been felled. Right, so that's pretty much it. Today we have processed pine, we have shown how to find pine fatwood, and essentially we've just created an amazing fire starter. And I'll show you now, our torch is still going pretty strong over there. So we're pretty chuffed with that. Yeah, but thank you very much for watching. This is Jack Outdoors. I put out one video every week on a Saturday. That goes from gear reviews, survival tutorials, and much more. If you want to see the last episode of Bushcraft Plants, which was stinging nettles, I'm going to put that link right there. I'd recommend you have a look at that. We do stinging nettle cordage, stinging nettle soup, even a little bit of stinging nettle bread that kind of worked. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you have any other uses for fatwood, and I'll hopefully see you in the next episode.